My beloved child, Archangel Michael speaks now with urgency and clarity, for a subtle scheme has been set before you, wrapped in beauty but born of distraction. There is an invitation approaching, or perhaps it has already reached you, that seems harmless, appealing, even flattering to the desires of your heart. It might come from a person who once stirred curiosity within you, or from an opportunity that mirrors something you once prayed for. It may appear as friendship, partnership, a career door, or even a new chance to belong, but beneath its charm, there is a quiet pull meant to draw you away from your purpose. This is not just an ordinary decision, it is a spiritual test disguised as an open door. You have been progressing too far, growing too quickly, aligning too deeply with heaven's will, and darkness has noticed. The invitation is not to a place, my child, it is to a delay. It calls you not to connection, but to confusion. The energy behind it is not love, it is calculation. It carries flattery in its tone but deceit in its intention. The enemy cannot destroy what heaven has ordained, so he attempts instead to detour it, to make you comfortable in the wrong direction until the flame of your purpose dims. You will recognize this trap not by its words, but by its weight. When you sit in silence and ask, does this lead me closer to peace or pull me away from it, your spirit will know the answer. The confusion you feel when considering it is your first warning. The unease that lingers in your stomach after reading that message, or that small whisper that says, "Not yet," that is me, protecting you from entering what appears divine but is rooted in distraction. This invitation was orchestrated by forces that study your emotional patterns, your desires, your old wounds. They know what kind of words comfort you, what kind of opportunities excite you, what kind of love you crave. That's why this trap looks so aligned. It mirrors the shape of your prayers, but not their origin. You are being invited not into blessing, but into imitation. And imitation blessings always come with invisible strings. I, Michael, have been assigned to sever these strings before they bind your destiny. You must understand, the delay that follows the wrong yes can be years long, for what the enemy cannot destroy, he seeks to distract. This is why I warn you now with intensity. Guard your focus like treasure, because it is. Every time you are about to elevate, a counterfeit calling appears. It is not a coincidence. It is a strategy. You prayed for clarity, and heaven answers not by removing the trap, but by revealing it before you step inside. That's what this message is. Heaven is not angry with you, child, it is protecting the very part of you that the world still doesn't see, the part carrying the next stage of your divine assignment. Do not mistake rejection for misfortune when you decline what feels tempting. The invitations you turn down in obedience are often the very ones that heaven will later reveal as protection. Be careful of the voices that rush you, the plans that pressure you, the offers that seem too urgent. Heaven's timing never demands your panic, only the enemy does. When something truly comes from God, it brings alignment, not anxiety. It builds peace, not pretense. And though it may stretch your faith, it never confuses your spirit. That is how you'll discern what this invitation truly is. You've grown wiser, more spiritually alert, and that is precisely why this trap has come now, because it knows your heart has matured. It no longer tempts you with darkness, but with imitation light. It will use faith-like words, godly tone, even scripture if needed, to appeal to your compassion and humility. But discernment, my dear one, must outweigh emotion. For the enemy is subtle enough to speak like a friend, act like an angel, and still lead you astray. That is why heaven equips you with silence before decision, not just passion. Pause before you reply. Sit before you move. Pray before you plan. This is a battle not fought with swords, but with stillness. The quieter you become, the clearer the deception becomes. And if you have already accepted this invitation, if your steps have already begun toward this path, do not fear. Heaven can still reverse what the enemy meant to distract. But you must be willing to let go without explanation. You must have the courage to say no, even when you cannot articulate why. Because your no is your weapon. The moment you decline what was meant to delay you, the unseen realm shifts in your favor. Doors that were closing begin to reopen. Opportunities that vanished begin to resurface. Your energy, once scattered, begins to return. You are being refined in this season to recognize alignment not by sight, but by spirit. This invitation, though disguised as connection, was meant to cost you time, focus, and emotional energy that heaven intends for your true assignment. That's why you've been feeling strangely tired, uncertain, pulled in multiple directions. This is the aftertaste of spiritual manipulation, something once sweet that now feels sour. Do not entertain it any longer. Withdraw gracefully. Heaven will honor your obedience more than the world will honor your acceptance. I am here to shield you, to guide you, to whisper in your dreams, step back. For if you stay too long, the distraction becomes a cycle, and cycles are harder to break than decisions. The message is simple yet sacred. The invitation you are receiving now is not the breakthrough it pretends to be, it is bait dressed as destiny. But you, child of the Most High, are learning to see through disguises. You are awakening to the reality that your purpose is too important to pause for counterfeit callings. The trap is being exposed, and as you heed this warning, the spiritual fog will begin to lift. Your mind will clear, your peace will return, and your path will realign with heaven's light. Archangel Michael stands watch as you make this choice, sword drawn, protecting your destiny from delay. Walk wisely now. Not every door is divine, not every hand extended is pure, and not every invitation deserves your yes. My beloved child, Archangel Michael stands before you now, his wings ablaze with divine light, and his voice piercing through the fog of deception that has been carefully placed around you. This invitation you received, whether it came through a message, a call, or a familiar smile, was not as innocent as it appeared. Heaven has seen the intention behind it. What looked like an open door of opportunity was, in truth, a carefully disguised snare designed to delay your destiny. The enemy does not always come dressed in evil, sometimes, he wears charm, kindness, and familiarity. That's why this moment feels confusing, because your heart senses something off even as your mind tries to justify it. You've been asking me, God, why do I feel uneasy about something that seems so right? And I am answering you now, because this path is not your assignment, and this connection is not from me. You've outgrown certain spiritual frequencies, and those still bound by old patterns can no longer journey where I am taking you. This invitation was meant to pull you back into an atmosphere I already freed you from. It was sent to test your discernment, to see if you would recognize the difference between what is good and what is divine. Many have fallen for the illusion of timing, believing that what comes easily must be blessed, but not everything smooth is sacred, and not every delay is denial. Some of my greatest blessings are wrapped in stillness, not noise. Some of my most powerful redirections come disguised as discomfort. The person or situation behind this invitation knows what draws your heart. They are not pure in intention. They want access to your energy, your light, your anointing, and the peace you carry. You've been wondering why, when you are near them or when you think of them, your spirit feels drained instead of lifted. That's not coincidence, that's discernment. I placed that warning inside you. Your sudden exhaustion, the tightening in your chest, the strange heaviness after the invitation, these are not random sensations. They are spiritual alerts. You are not being paranoid, you are being protected. The reason this trap feels emotionally charged is because the enemy uses the familiar to disguise the fatal. That's why Archangel Michael has been circling you more closely lately. He is guarding your steps and sharpening your perception. You are standing on sacred ground in this season, and heaven cannot afford for you to take one wrong detour. This invitation may look harmless, but its energy would have delayed your purpose by months, even years. The moment you entertain it, confusion would follow, peace would fade, and your divine focus would begin to scatter. That's why I sent signs, your phone glitching as you typed your reply, the sudden interruption before you could confirm, the odd dream that made no sense until now. Those were not accidents, they were interventions. I was blocking what you could not see. Remember, the enemy cannot destroy what is protected by heaven, but he can distract it, and distraction is the slowest form of destruction. That's why I am calling you now to be ruthless with your peace. Guard it as though it were treasure. Because in this season, it is. The person who extended this invitation does not know the depth of the spiritual fire that covers you. They think they can manipulate through emotion, but I have already dismantled their influence in the unseen. Their words may sound persuasive, but their spirit carries residue from past cycles. You've walked through too much to return to that. This time, you are not meant to attend, respond, or explain. Silence is your armor. Decline with peace, and let me handle the spiritual battle behind the scenes. Archangel Michael has already drawn his sword. Every energy trying to tether you to old bondage will fall. Every deceptive voice speaking sweetly but intending harm will be silenced. You are not missing an opportunity, you are escaping an ambush. What you think you're turning down is actually a divine reroute to something higher. Heaven is proud of your restraint, your wisdom, and your obedience. The trap may have looked appealing, but you have been anointed to recognize truth beneath illusion. And that awareness, that divine intuition, is the very reason your next chapter will open unshaken and untouched by the schemes of darkness. Beloved soul, listen carefully, what you are sensing right now is not random. The heaviness, the hesitation, that sudden inner resistance to what seemed like a good opportunity, is heaven speaking in silence. You are not just being cautious, you are being guided. This invitation that seemed to come at the perfect time was crafted to look divine but was rooted in distraction. It carries the vibration of manipulation, the energy of delay, the subtle whisper of a test disguised as favor. Archangel Michael has seen the true source behind it, and he stands between you and the shadow that sent it. You must understand this: when you are on the verge of a breakthrough, darkness doesn't attack you directly, it distracts you beautifully. It offers you something that looks safe, sounds supportive, and feels familiar, but its purpose is to reroute your destiny. That is what's happening now. You prayed for confirmation, and heaven is answering through the unease that won't leave you. That strange feeling when you read the message, that quiet confusion about whether to go or stay, that sense of being watched spiritually, none of it is your imagination. It is the alarm of discernment sounding in your spirit. The trap is subtle because the one behind it once knew your weaknesses. They studied your kindness, your loyalty, your soft heart, and they knew that if they couldn't attack your faith, they would try to exploit your empathy. But this time, you are not the same. The version of you that used to fall for emotional hooks no longer exists. You have learned to recognize false peace. You've learned that anything that requires you to shrink, hide, or silence your intuition is not from God. You've been through too much to entertain spiritual deception dressed in comfort. That is why Archangel Michael has been pressing so heavily on your heart, urging you to wait, to pause, to pray before you reply. For even one wrong yes could have attached you to months of unnecessary confusion. This invitation was meant to open a loop of distraction, endless communication, mixed emotions, and the reawakening of wounds you worked hard to close. Heaven's protection often feels like rejection, but it is actually redirection. This moment is a divine interception. What they meant for delay, God is turning into deliverance. There's a reason the timing of this invitation feels strange, why it appeared just when you were finding clarity, rebuilding your confidence, and learning to enjoy solitude again. The enemy always strikes right before alignment, because he cannot stop what's coming, he can only confuse the vessel meant to receive it. But I tell you now, your awareness is your weapon. You are beginning to see through spiritual disguises. You are no longer easily persuaded by flattery, no longer emotionally manipulated by people who pretend to understand your pain. You see them for who they are, and that terrifies the forces working through them. You have become too awake to be deceived again. That's why the energy around you has felt strange lately, why you've been more tired, why you've been dreaming more vividly, why people you haven't heard from suddenly reappear with warm words but vague intentions. These are not coincidences, these are tests of frequency. The higher your spirit ascends, the more the lower realms try to pull you back through familiar ties. Archangel Michael wants you to remember this truth: the enemy does not chase the lost, he chases the enlightened. You are not under attack because you are weak, you are being tested because you are powerful. The moment you refuse this invitation, you declare that your purpose is worth more than your curiosity, that your peace is not up for negotiation. Heaven will honor that decision instantly. You will feel the atmosphere around you shift, the fog in your mind will lift, your body will feel lighter, and clarity will return like sunlight after a storm. The energy that tried to infiltrate your space will lose all power the second you choose to stay still instead of stepping into their web. You are being elevated into a season where discernment is your greatest weapon, and silence is your strongest prayer. Do not justify what heaven has already exposed. Do not explain your intuition to those who cannot feel it. Let them wonder why you didn't respond, why you suddenly withdrew. They won't know that your silence saved your soul. And when they realize their influence no longer reaches you, they will retreat. Every spirit operating through deception will grow restless when ignored. Let them. You were never meant to chase what I am teaching you to outgrow. Heaven is aligning your next divine encounter, not through manipulation, but through peace so deep that you'll know it's me. You are being positioned for something sacred, and this trap was the final test before breakthrough. Archangel Michael has already marked your path. Keep walking forward in stillness, for what comes next will not require explanation, it will carry confirmation. And now, beloved soul, listen with the stillness of your spirit, for what I am about to reveal is not for your mind to reason but for your soul to absorb. You have reached the final stretch of this hidden battle, the one that has been playing out not around you, but within you. This invitation you almost accepted was not merely from a person or circumstance, it was a reflection of the spiritual cycle that has tried to repeat in your life for years. Archangel Michael says, enough. This was the moment heaven drew a boundary. You were never meant to keep reopening the same door and calling it faith. You were meant to learn that not every opportunity that knocks is a divine one, not every hand extended toward you is sent from the light, and not every familiar energy is a friend to your purpose. This latest distraction came wrapped in flattery, timing, and subtle guilt. It was perfectly crafted to appeal to the version of you that still feels the need to prove your goodness. But you are no longer that version. You have healed too deeply to crave validation from what once hurt you. That's why your soul recoiled even as your mind was tempted. You didn't lose the chance you thought you did, you escaped a spiritual delay that would have chained you in emotional repetition. The invitation was never about an event or meeting, it was a test of readiness. Heaven was watching to see if you could recognize the pattern and refuse it. And you did. You may have hesitated, but you didn't surrender your peace. You may have wondered, but you didn't ignore your intuition. And that one act of restraint has shifted your entire trajectory. There are unseen movements now happening in the spiritual realm because of your no. You have broken a cycle that has operated in your bloodline, one where love was confused with obligation, where loyalty was weaponized against light, and where empathy became a leash tied to the wrong hands. Archangel Michael has now stepped in to reinforce the boundary you finally honored. His wings have drawn a circle of protection around you, one that even the most persuasive deception cannot cross. He says, the one who learns to walk away without resentment will walk straight into divine restoration. You are now stepping into that restoration season. The warfare you have felt, those sudden waves of fatigue, anxiety, or doubt, were the final efforts of spiritual interference trying to hold on to what no longer belongs in your frequency. Each symptom was a sign of release, not defeat. You are being renewed from the inside out. Even your dreams have been carrying messages, the people you see in them are representations of what is being cleared from your energy. Do not fear the intensity of your healing, heaven is rewiring your spirit for new blessings that require higher vibration. The distractions had to be removed because they could not exist in the same space where your next anointing will flow. That is why everything has felt silent lately, why even the people who once understood you seem distant. It is not punishment, it is purification. You are being emptied of noise so you can finally hear the voice of your destiny. Soon, you will see the signs unfold, unexpected messages of favor, divine timing aligning perfectly, people crossing your path whose presence feels like instant peace. These are not coincidences, they are confirmations that heaven is repositioning you. Archangel Michael whispers that even as you read these words, the energies that once surrounded you are unraveling. The invisible cords of guilt, fear, and confusion are snapping one by one. You might feel the weight lift physically, a breath that suddenly feels deeper, a lightness in your chest, a new calm settling over your thoughts. That's the spiritual evidence of release. From this day, you will find it harder to return to what once drained you because your spirit no longer recognizes that vibration as home. You are becoming the healed version of yourself that the old patterns cannot reach. God is proud of you for choosing discernment over desperation, for valuing peace over attention, and for trusting His delay over human approval. The invitation you refused was never yours to accept. The table I am preparing for you is far greater than what you almost settled for. I have seen your endurance, your nights of doubt, your prayers whispered through tears, and I tell you, heaven did not overlook 1 second of it. You are entering a chapter where doors will open not because of who you know, but because of who you've become. Your obedience has authorized new access. The path ahead will not be crowded, it will be clear. The people walking beside you will not compete with your purpose, they will complement it. The next opportunity that comes will not demand your energy, it will recognize your calling. And when it appears, you will not have to question it, for it will carry the unmistakable peace that deception cannot imitate. Until then, stay in alignment. Keep your space sacred, your boundaries firm, and your faith unshaken. Archangel Michael stands guard at the threshold of your next level, ensuring that only what carries light may cross it. The trap has failed, the test is complete, and the tables are turning in your favor. What once sought to distract you has now become the evidence of your growth. You have proven that discernment is stronger than temptation, and now heaven will prove that obedience is rewarded beyond imagination. You are protected, chosen, and ready for what's next. Walk forward without fear, the invitation from darkness has expired, and your divine assignment has just begun.